So I wasn't going to actually record this, but I think I'm going to. The reason being is a lot of you guys struggle with your workshops through the winter being cold. So I thought this may be a cost-effective way that you guys could put some heat into your workshops. So what I've been and bought is, this is a lorry, truck, car diesel preheater. You can get them from 2 kilowatts up to 8 kilowatts. This is the 8 kilowatt motor, or 8 kilowatt one. So it's a diesel burner. You can run it on kerosene or paraffin. I'm going to run mine on kerosene because obviously heating oil is cheaper, so it should work out more cost effective. I will put a link for this particular model in the description below. Everything you need other than a power supply comes in the kit, all for under £100. Bonus. To me, that is a really cost-effective way to heat your workshop, that you're going to have constant heat when you need it without any major electrical bills through running oil filled or electrical radiators. So what do you get in the kit? You get in the kit the 8 kilowatt burner, instruction manual, this product list. You get this is an exhaust muffler to keep the noise down for the exhaust. Some come with a 10 litre, but this model comes with a 15 litre fuel tank. You get some flexi hoses if I can find them. Workshop's a mess because I've been sorting out other bits and bobs. So you get this box of goodies. You get some 75mm flexi hose that extends to about 750 long, I believe. You get some outlets. You get a bag full of connections and fittings that you'll need to install. You get a T for your hose because you get 2 of the hoses, so you get 2 outlets. You get your fuel line, electric fuel pump, which you'll need, Jubilee clips and the exhaust, and there's the other hose. And then this small flexi hose is for fresh air being sucked into the burner. My plan is to install it on this wall. So this wall's between my garage and my workshop, so I'm going to install it on this wall. I've made this bracket. When I was making this bracket, I thought, do you know, I'm going to record this. This is when I actually decided to record it. So you also get this metal plate which it stands on. So what I've done is I've made this L bracket wall plate to screw between the noggins of the wall, and I've cut out the bottom. So I believe this one's the exhaust, this one is the air breather, and then your fuel line comes through there. So I've cut that out so there's no heat around the wood. The actual appliance, the actual machine itself, the actual burner, only gets to about 35-40 degrees when running hot, so it's perfectly okay to sit next to the timber. So what we'll have is we'll have hot air coming out of this end, as you can see the heat matrix in there, and then this end is the turbine which draws in fresh air. Now I've watched a lot of videos about this, and a lot of people don't have this end, the air drawing in, they just have fresh air coming in this end. But my thinking is, if you pipe the warm air going into the workshop and then you're drawing air from the workshop, once the workshop is warm, you're actually only topping up the heat for the air. You're not drawing cold air into there all the time, so in theory the burner shouldn't have to work so hard and therefore not use so much fuel. That's my way of thinking. Whether it works or not, I don't know. So we'll get this mounted and then we'll go from there. Progress so far. Air pipe in, drilled a hole through the outside. You can see it's dark outside now. Air pipe out there. I've put the exhaust pipe through, but it's resting on there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually make a metal plate to go on the outside, so it's actually in the middle of the metal plate, so it doesn't actually touch the wood. So hopefully we shouldn't cause any burn or smouldering. And what I'll do is I'll stick a piece of, I've got some 25 by 25 mil angle, no sorry, 15 by 50 mil aluminium angle iron. I'll just put a little bit on the top there, just so that's actually not getting any heat. So that's the unit mounted anyway. Next thing I think would be piping. So obviously you're running a pipe from here. I'm going to bring it in above my door here. The blowout and the input, I don't know yet, I'm not sure, but I'll have a think about it and we'll come back to it. But it's up there, it's nice and tidy. I've just got to wonder where to put the fuel tank. I need to put the fuel tank somewhere it's easy to get to fill up, and it's not going to get caught, but we'll see. But at the moment I'm happy where it's going. Daylight, I can show you guys on this side. What I've done is I've brought them through this wall. I'm now going to make a plate to go in there for these pipes to sit, especially this exhaust one, because this gets quite warm, I would imagine. So I'm going to make a galvanized plate to support that, so that's in the middle of that hole. So I'm going to put some exhaust wrap around this anyway, so it should protect it from the wood, but better be safe than sorry. So I'm just going to measure this and make a plate for this in there. I've got a bit of galvanized steel, I'll be using that. So yeah, that'll be the next stage. So our exhaust and our air intake are two different sizes. This one is this is air exhaust. This one is 29. This one is 27. So I've got two different hole saws, 29 and 27. So that'll be fine. So what I'll do now is I want to mark out for some holes to go to screw it. So I'm just going to roughly mark this out along here, and then we can get some screw holes. I don't want them right to the top, so that will be there and there. And then these ones, actually I think I'll bring a little bit further in because we're going to have an overlap, so we'll go there and there. Not enough to hold that in. Shouldn't need, actually might put one in the middle as well. So let's just mark these with the hole punch. In there as well. Stop it twisting, and then mark our centres as well. So there we go. So we'll go to the drill and get them drilled out. Right, so remembering when cutting steel, never hold the plate with your hands unless you've got really thick gauntlets on, because if that slips or that grabs, it's going to slice your hand. So I'm using a vice clamp to hold it. I'm going to use a little bit of 3-in-1 oil just to lube it up so that it doesn't slide all over the place and it cuts a lot more even. So we're going to gently cut through our steel first. Don't need loads of pressure, let the drill bit do the cutting. So then we've got to see if it fits. So small one, large one. Like I say, all this is designed to do is just to keep that heat pipe away from the wood. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn it over, see if that's better the other way, not that way. So we're we've got there, the holes are a bit low. Just make sure it's in the middle. I think we'll put it away. So we'll do it that way. Just check where that pipe is. So if we do the holes on the bottom edge of that, we should be fine. So edge, edge. So I want to be about there. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to put a couple of screws in it, and I'm going to check on the inside to make sure it's right. So put one in there. We'll put one in this side, and we'll just go and check it. So I'm just putting or mounting the fuel tank. I found a place to put it. I'm mounting my fuel tank here. Admittedly, the fuel line's got to go up and over the door to there, but that's the safest place to put it so it doesn't get damaged. So obviously the fuel tank has to have an outlet, and there's no outlet. You have to fit the outlet yourself. Now, I may be being stupid, but obviously getting this to fit through the hole is a bit dodgy. So I drilled a 8mm hole in there, which is the diameter of the thread on there. But obviously getting that from in that hole there through into there is a bit tricky. So the way I'm thinking is use a piece of string to thread it through. Now, I'm hoping this is going to work, because if not, we are stuffed. So wish me luck. So I've got to try and get this through the tank down to there. So yeah, it's a bit of a tricky one. I did try feeding the bit in there, and then try and get gravity to lead it over so that I could pull it through, but that didn't work. So this is second resource. So if I can get that through there, then happy days. Ooh. It might work. I'll pull that through. Put it, oh, look at that. So if you're fitting one of these, use a piece of cord to pull your outlet through your hole. I'm not going to take the cord out of it just yet until I've got it all mounted up. So there's obviously an O-ring on the inside of there. Then you've got your O-ring that goes on the outside. I'm not going to take the cord off just in case that pushes back in just yet. So O-ring, and then you've got your nut to obviously give you a nice tight seal. So there you go, guys, that's how you do it. I was a little bit concerned that I was going to struggle getting it in there, but it seemed to work. So progress even so far. Fuel tank mounted on the side of my racking, just outside the workshop door. The reason I put it that side is because the door opens that way, and I didn't want it behind the door and getting bashed. I normally stack all my shovels and picks and all that this side, and hang all my air lines and extension leads up here, so I didn't want it up there. So I've run the fuel line down beside the door, inline fuel filter. You actually get a fuel filter with the pump, but I took it apart, and the gauze inside is not very fine, so I've decided to put a small, this is a motorbike one, inline fuel filter. Then I've run the fuel line along there, along the bottom of the door, so it doesn't get catched, and then back up this side to the fuel pump. And then we've got another hose. I've had to buy this hose because the hose wasn't long enough. Again, this is motorbike fuel pipe. From there up behind this board, clipped along the edge of my bracket to plug into my fuel input there. So next stage, connecting up the electrics. So as always, I don't show connecting electrics on a video, but I will connect them, and then I'll come back and show you guys where I've mounted it, how I've connected it when we get there. Power supply in, powered up. Obviously 240 in earth. I've taken the earth back to the main fuse box because there was no earth on this cable. So I've got an earth from the fuse box, and obviously we've got a 12 volt negative and positive, which goes to our burner. So what we're ready for now, fuel pump all mounted, connected up, signal cable to it. I haven't connected this to the burner yet. The reason being is we need to bleed this. So I'm hoping the pump's gonna be powerful enough to push it up. Gravity should feed it from the tank, because the tank and the pump are not far off the same height, so there should be enough pressure with the weight of the fuel to push it to the pump. So then we need to just make sure we pump it that little way to bleed the air out of it. This is why I've used transparent fuel pipes, so we can see if there's any airline and air bubbles in it. So next step is I'm going to put a bit of fuel, not a lot, perhaps a litre in the tank, and we'll see if we've got any leaks. I'm not going to put loads in there, just in case we've got a leak from this fitting on the bottom of the tank here. It's only a couple of O-rings, so I'm not 100% confident on that. So let's get a litre of fuel in it and see what happens. But other than connecting the control panel, which I need to extend this wire, but I'm going to just get it connected, get it up and running, and then I can extend this afterwards. So at the moment, all going well. Hopefully in the next 10-15 minutes we should be able to run her up and see how it runs and how much hot air it chucks out. At the moment I've not done the feed to that. I'm waiting for some pipe to come for that. So at the moment we're just going to be drawing cold air in from outside the garage. But like I say, eventually that will be sucking air out of here and then blowing air, and then that'll be like recirculating from the workshop. So that's the plan. So let's get some fuel in and see what happens. I've put, as you can see, not a lot of fuel in there. Just going to leave it a half hour or so, and we'll see if we get any leaks from this union here. And if we don't get no leaks, then we'll I've got 10 litres of kerosene just to test it really, but we'll see what happens. I'll leave that 10 minutes, and then we'll try and get it around to the pump to get it fired up. So I'm just priming this. I've got the fuel to there, I've got it up to here, but I've got a few air bubbles in it, so I want to keep it running. To get the pump to run, just hold that there for a second. To get the pump to run, you have to hold OK and arrow. If you've got this control panel, you have to hold control and arrow down, and you'll get a number H, and it says off, which is obviously the pump's off. And if you press the arrow up, the pump will start. There you go, you hear it ticking. It's a bit noisy, the pump. I may have to relocate that pump so I don't get so much noise from it. So what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to get as much air as I can out of the pump before we actually put it on the burner, because if not it's just going to keep tripping out when it tries to fire up. It doesn't matter how much we pump out, because we can put it back in the fuel tank because it's clean, because it's going through our filter, so it doesn't really matter. But as you can see, I don't know if you can see, there's a few little air bubbles coming up through there, which I'm going to try and get as much as I can out of it. May have to do it 2 or 3 times before we get perfectly full line. But we've got a few little tiny air bubbles coming through there. Obviously there's going to be a bit of air inside the magnetic coil, whereas there's like a piston that goes backwards and forwards. That's what you can hear ticking. There's a piston go backwards and forwards, working on a magnetic coil. So we've just got to keep it running until we get rid of all these air bubbles really. Like I said, it doesn't matter because we can put it back in the fuel tank. So what I'll do is I'll come back to you guys when we've got all the air out of it and we're ready to fire it up. Got the fuel, I've blended it about 4 times now. Got the odd little tiny bubble coming through it, but I'm hoping this I'm going to put up here once we get it up and running. But I don't want to do too much just in case I have to take it and bleed it again. But I'm hoping that the last little bit of air is going to be drawed out through firing it up and it running. So I'm going to just hang the controller here for now, because I'm going to extend it and put it in the workshop. So moment of truth. Let's see if it fires up. So just press the power button and you should You can hear the turbine starting. You can see the red LED, the glow plug, which means the glow plug is heating. You've got the hot and cold coming in, the exhaust and fresh air being sucked in, and obviously the blue light is saying there's power to the pump. So hopefully it should now try and fire up. So then you can hear the pump saying the pump's now started. So what it should do is there should be some bars come along. Should be some bars come along this area here. I think there's 2 yellow, 2 red, and 2 red, 2 green, and 2 yellow. I think. But I've ordered a better. There's a newer controller out, which I've ordered because it's supposed to be a better controller. There you go. You can just hear the exhaust firing up. I don't know if you can hear that. So the exhaust is now going, so it should be producing hot air. So we'll let that ramp up and see how noisy it is and see how much heat it produces. Been running for about 5 minutes now. Just going to do some temperature checks. So I'm going to see what this temperature this is. So the hose is 62 degrees. Well, 64, depending on where your pointer really. So 64 as it goes through there. Our exhaust is, depending on where you go, 125. 140 roughly where the outlet is, so obviously when we lag that we're going to save a lot of that. The air intake is going to be cold. It's drawing in cold air obviously from outside or in the workshop or the garage at the moment, but obviously making it more efficient by drawing air from outside the warm workshop. So this has been running now and it's still on high power. So you can set this 2 ways. You can either set it with a timer, or 3-way, sorry, a timer. You can either control the pump or you can set the temperature as well. So we set the temperature to the outside temperature, which is 16 degrees. So we'll set the temperature to 16 degrees and the pump, that should start to slow down a little bit. And it's a little bit noisy, but it's running at full pelt at the moment. But you can set it so you run it on pump speed rather than 1.4 is the lowest though, and it'll run slower at 1.4 hertz, or you can run it on temperature. Obviously I'm going to run it on temperature when I get in there because I want to keep in the workshop at around about 17 degrees, and then I'll do it so if I need to I can turn up a little bit. But as you can hear now, it's starting to slow down because obviously we've dropped the pump speed. So we'll let that settle down and then we'll check some temperatures after that. Just check the outlet. Still about 64 degrees. Exhaust is about, depending on where you go really because it's so reflective, it's around about 130 degrees. But the pump is so noisy. I need to do something with that pump because I can't cope with that banging away like that. That will absolutely drive me absolutely wacky. So I need to find a way of making that pump a lot less noisy. But as you can hear now, it's virtually, you can hardly hear it. So we'll see what heat that's chucking out on the workshop. Right, so I finally managed to get the pipe work finished. So as you can see on the wall there, I've run the pipe through where it comes through the wall, along there, and an outlet there. And what I've also done is I've teed it off behind the CCTV monitor, and I run it all the way along that wall, through that wall, and then it comes in on there into a Y. Trying to hold this so I've got it on the front screen, and then I've got it wide off to 2 outlets into this workshop because this is the bigger workshop. So hopefully keep this nice and warm. I've had this running now for 2 or 3 weeks, and I'm actually getting about 5 days of running out of it on 15 litres of kerosene. So it works out about £7 for 5 days worth of heat. But what I've been doing is, when I'm not in the workshop, I've been turning it down to 10 degrees just so it ticks over, and actually keeps the workshop around about 12-13 degrees. So it's keeping it just the chill off of it, enough to stop things rusting and moisture setting in, and it's working really, really well. I've mounted my control panel here. As you can see, it's saying 17 degrees on there. For some reason, a bit of a cold spot here, but it's saying 17 degrees on there. But up on the wall, you can see the thermostat is saying, what's that saying? 22.3. So obviously that's up near a heating pipe anyway, but you can feel the heat as you, like, on the head height compared to foot height, so you can feel the heat anyway. But at the moment, I'm really pleased with how it's working. So I hope this is an insight to try and heat your workshops for a cost-effective price. But what I will do, I'm going to keep it running, because I keep it running 24/7. I'm going to keep it running, and then in a couple of months' time we'll come back and we will see whether it's, one, reliable, keeps going, and two, how efficient it is, whether it keeps doing the 5 days on 15 litres of fuel. Obviously we get really cold spells, and depending on how much I keep turning it up, varies a little bit, but to me 15 litres of fuel for 5 days heating is really, really good. So anyway, hope the video helps. Any questions, chuck them in the comment or message me, and hopefully you guys can heat your workshops. So anyway guys, take care, speak to you soon, and bye for now.